Give me a thumbs up. Good, I saw that. All right, first, what Ramanan said is absolutely right. He did reach out, ask if I would talk to ProductTank Auckland. I said no problem, but he did not tell me it was going to be to Open World Product Day. So first off, someone punch him in the arm for me. I'm good, thank you. I'm super nervous. I can only screw this up. I don't know how to lower your expectations. Hold on a second. I need to share a screen. You're still looking at me. Let me see if I can get some slides up. Great. All right. Can you see my hand? How many fingers am I holding up? Good. All right. That's working. All right. I need to talk about product metrics. First, I'm kind of a bad person to talk about product metrics. Let me first, before anyone takes offense at the title, I'm the noob here. I'm the new one. I've spent a couple decades as a member of a product team, then a product manager, and now I'm a consultant. And throughout the 90s and early 2000s, I was mostly ignorant of product metrics. I knew enough to get by. Look, once I started to learn a little and a little bit more, I spent more years being confused and frustrated about what to measure and how. Now I think I'm finally getting my head around it. And what I want to talk about is or just the basics, and maybe why your company might be happily ignoring product metrics like I was throughout the 90s and 2000s, and frankly, like a lot of companies I work with today still are. Now, you might think that finding meaningful metrics is hard, but I'm hoping you come away from this realizing that it's a lot easier than you think it is. And for my money, people have been making it a little bit more complicated than it needs to be for a little while now. So when I ask companies what metrics are most important to them, they usually talk to me about revenue. I hear things like monthly recurring revenue or ARR, annual recurring revenue. Sometimes they talk about customer satisfaction, especially things like net promoter score. Look, I'm old. When I was building software in the 1990s and into the 2000s, I was building software for brick and mortar retailers. I worked for a smaller product company back then. My product company was acquired by Salesforce.com last year. It wasn't my company. I didn't make billions of dollars from it. I was just a product manager there for a long time. But it's Salesforce Commerce Cloud now. So the company survived and thrived. And it's embarrassing, but for the first several years, first decade plus of working there, all we talked about were sales, and did our customers buy the product, and did they pay their annual licensing for the product, and well, when we did a release, did they complain, and how many people complained? And those were the metrics we listened to. Basically, if they kept paying for the product, that's a good metric. If they don't complain too much, that's a good metric, and that's all it took. Look, it took me a long time to figure out that those aren't particularly good metrics. Measuring business success isn't the same as measuring product success. Now, look, the problem with measuring business success, look, I'm going to play a short video from South Park. For people that are familiar with South Park is a reliable source for bad examples, or examples of bad behavior anyway. Now, for people that are familiar with this meme, it's kind of old. It's from season 2 of South Park, and it's about the underpants gnomes. The underpants gnomes sneak into your room at night and steal your underwear, and it's in this episode that we learn about their business plan, or how this works. Hey, somebody's going to have to text me or signal me if you don't get the sound, but I'm hoping the sound comes through okay here.
Anybody know anything about corporations? I think my mom is a corporation. Yeah, that makes sense. You guys! Well, how about we just say corporate should be stopped? How do we stretch that into 5 minutes? You're taking my underpants! Will you stop with the underpants gnomes tweak? We have to work here. What the hell? Well, I'll be damned. That's my last pair of underpants! Shh, don't scare him. Hey there, little guy. Bang! Cartman, why do you always have to hit stuff with a stick? Well, look at him. He's, look at him. Dude, why are you taking Tweak's underpants? Yeah, look what you're doing to this poor kid.
Stealing underpants, big business.
Business? Wait, do you know anything about business?
Sure, that's what gnomes do.
Show us.
Okay, follow me. Not much longer now. Follow me. This is where all our work is done.
So what are you going to do with all these underpants that you steal?
Collecting underpants is just phase 1. Phase 1, collect underpants.
So what's phase 2?
Hey, what's phase 2? Phase 1, we collect underpants. Yeah, but what about phase 2? Well, phase 3 is profit. Get it?
I don't get it.
You see, phase 1, collect underpants. Phase 2, phase 3, profit.
I get it. No, you don't. Do you guys know anything about corporations?
You bet we do. Us gnomes are geniuses at corporations. Time to go to work. First
Okay, I'm going to kill that here. Hey, I just want to make sure, is the sound coming through? Are you able to hear that okay?
Yeah, it came through.
Wonderful. All right. I'm hoping some people have seen that before, and I'm hoping, well, if you've seen it for the first time now, you can't unsee it. And let me try and explain what that means or what that has to do with metrics. I'm going to draw a drawing that I draw. Well, I draw this all the time, and I'm tired of drawing it, but I'm going to keep drawing it until I don't have to anymore. And I want to equate this to the underpants gnome scheme. Now, you may work for a product company, and you may be building products. It may feel like collecting underpants from time to time, but look, those products are built out of features and capabilities. And, well, all that stuff we refer to as our product requirements. Now, we want to turn this stuff into a product that we can ship. We worry about the time or how long that's going to take to ship. We worry about the cost, how much it's going to cost. And look, we call all this stuff scope. Everybody worries about the time, cost, and scope thing. And for a lot of product managers, they're still in phase 1. They're still collecting underpants, and there's a lot of pressure to collect more stuff faster. But what matters is what happens later after things can come out. What we hope is true is that we've got customers out there that see what we've done. We hope that they see our features, our capabilities. We hope that they see our product. We hope that they try it. We hope that they use it. We hope that they keep using it. And ideally, we hope that they say good things about it. Now, if we're building well, somewhere along here also, we hope that they pay for it and keep paying. And if we build something for internal use or to support a bigger business process, we hope that they're more efficient or effective. Now, look, if all these people do this, then well, where we really want to feel it is back here in your organization, in our business. What we hope is true is that enough people use it and keep using it that we start to see these metrics go up. Your organization has a different responsibility. It needs to sustain itself. And if your organization is publicly held, or most organizations sort of commit themselves to growing quarter over quarter, and to do that, it's going to have to pay attention to revenue and costs. And, well, if enough people use our product and keep using our product, well, we'll get that ROI stuff, the stuff that matters to our organization. If enough people say good things, that's going to help our brand and brand awareness or brand sentiment. Well, net promoter score, things like that. And if enough people say good things and tell other people or keep using the product, that's going to help our market share. Now, look, if you ship something and a few people try to use it, that's awesome, but enough people have to do it so that we can feel it here. Now, the answer to what about phase 2 is all this stuff in between. And it isn't necessarily things like ARR or MRR or net promoter score. Those things are out here. Those happen as a consequence of these things. I spend a lot of time letting companies know that your company won't get the things it wants unless your users get what they want. And further, it's these things that we refer to as lagging indicators. They happen after things happen. But these things, well, all these things, well, these are leading indicators. And the annoying thing about these things is that they're measured in these people's behavior. It's what they do, not what you do inside your building. In fact, you can't do these things. These are the unpredictable things. So look, key message here is that revenue is a lagging indicator. It's not one that helps you figure out if your product is doing well. It's certainly one that your business needs to measure, and we don't have to do much to measure it. Chances are your business is already measuring it. But if we use a product routinely, look, I've got a lot of apps on my phone, and recently I killed my subscription for a meditation app. Apparently, I'm a little too nervous and shaky to want to meditate every day. I stopped using the app months ago, and I saw on my credit card bill that I was still paying for this app, and I finally got around to killing it. For months, that company was making monthly recurring revenue on me, but if they were paying attention to their leading indicators, they probably saw that I was not meditating daily like I should be. It's those leading indicators that let us know when things are about to go wrong. So look, there's a couple things. In fact, here's the big message. And look, when I tell you this, the talk is going to be more or less over. That's it. If you're responsible for a product, all you need to know is what people use your product for. And you kind of need to know how often you expect they'll do that. And once you know those two things, just measure that. That's it. Now, let me see if I can illustrate what I mean here. Look, Twitter gets used for a couple different things. I use Twitter. I tweet. That's the thing that I do, and I do that to share what I'm thinking. But I mostly do that kind of to market or let people know that I'm doing something that they should know about, a class that I might be attending. And sometimes I am thinking things that I want people to know about. But the other thing I use Twitter for is to see what everyone else is thinking, I follow and I listen to what people are saying. Now, look, those are two primary things that people do, and tweeting for me is something that I might do weekly. Following or paying attention to what people say, that's something I do several times a day, daily, and that's what I'd expect. Now, there's a little bit more to talk about here. There are differences in different types of users. For instance, if you live in my country and are burdened with our president, weekly is not the rate of tweeting for that kind of person. It's a lot higher frequency. But look, maybe typically for a typical user, the metric that I want to pay attention to is, tweets per user per week. Got a nice ratio, and if I see tweets per user per week going down, then chances are that's going to be a problem. If I see people visiting and viewing their, let's say, the stream views per day, if I see stream views per day going down, chances are that's going to hurt my business. If I'm making money on advertising revenue, well, it's a lot less people coming, and ultimately, I'm going to eventually start to lose money from ad revenue. Look, Netflix, well, I watch stuff. And I don't watch stuff every day on Netflix. Sadly, I do this many times a week, and more on weekends. There's sort of a weekly cycle there. So if I was in Netflix, I might look at watches per week. And I wrote zero down here, like I know what zero does, but if I assume I know a little bit about what zero does, people use zero to manage their small business. But well, what do they do? Look, I use it to balance or reconcile a bank account. Actually, I'll be honest with you, my accountant does that with our stuff. And, well, that's at most a weekly or every couple weeks, every week or two. And if I'm working for Xero and I'm responsible for that functionality, I want to look at the well, maybe the reconciliations per week or a month, and I might look at a rate. And if that rate starts to drop, I can almost guess that monthly recurring revenue is going to start to drop. Let me put this back on the screen. If you're responsible for a product, figure out what that product does, figure out how often people do it, and measure that. Now, let's make this just a little bit more sophisticated. Look, I'm known for this story mapping thing. And one thing that really helps is to map your product experience. Now, look, recently a friend of mine said, hey, I put classes out there on LinkedIn Learning, and I want to talk about LinkedIn Learning. And I've used a few online learning things, but I wanted to investigate LinkedIn Learning to see if I wanted to join it. So look, I searched, I got online, I searched for a class. In fact, I searched for his classes, and I looked at the details, like what were the classes about and how many did he have and were they in a series and how long did they take. And then one of the things I was able to do was play an intro. And look, I'm not a LinkedIn Learning subscriber. Years ago, I had subscribed to Linda before LinkedIn Learning, before LinkedIn bought that thing. And so I had to start over a little bit, and I said, okay, look, I want to see my friend's stuff. There's enough good content on here. And I chose to sign up. And, well, then I started taking my friend's courses. I took a couple of his courses, listened to them while I was doing other things. And look, I could review my course details. Look, if I map, look, taking courses is the primary purpose of LinkedIn Learning, and knowing the rate that people take courses is super useful. But it's a little bit lagging. It took me hours or a day before I actually finished taking that first course. But just knowing that people showed up, searched for a class, and looked at details is a leading indicator to whether people are actually starting to use it for its intended purpose. If you're responsible for a product, you're going to have to unpack that using thing and go a little bit deeper. Now, I wanted you to see how that's done. In the context of teaching, I want people to be able to understand what their product does. If they can understand that, or understand what people using their product do in order to reach their goals, they can figure out what to measure. And every one of those things is a possible metric. Now, let me overlay something else on here. I want to talk a little bit about adoption experience. One of the things I first learned about metrics, or one of the first things I was shown in metrics, were these funnels. And funnels are fairly straightforward. In fact, I sort of drew a funnel in gray on here. If I look at this, people will often talk about a funnel because we know that we may lead a lot of people to our product. A lot of people might search for a class, but never find anything that they want, and then they will fall out. And so fewer people may review details, even fewer people may play an intro, even fewer people may sign up, and even fewer people may take a class. And it's a constricting thing. Now, the funnels that I saw never quite matched the experience I was used to thinking about, and they weren't the way I thought. And for years, funnels have bugged me. I need to show you why funnels bug me, and I even have a prop. I actually have an actual funnel here. And look, I've got, these are users here. And I want you to notice something about funnels. If a lot of people go into my funnel, notice that everybody that goes into the funnel ends up coming out the other end, although they may take a little shaking to get out. Now, that's not at all the way funnels actually work. This is a broken metaphor. Not everybody gets through a funnel, and your users won't all get through your product. They will fall out of the funnel, and, well, no one falls out of that funnel. I want to talk about one of the basic funnel metrics. Well, the basic funnels I was taught, and I'm sick of that funnel metaphor, so I'm not going to use it. In fact, I'm going to draw a mountain, and from now on, we're going to talk about metrics mountains. That's the metaphor I like best, because if your product is a mountain that your users are going to scale, it takes some effort to get all the way from the beginning to the end. And you may have a bunch of users that pile up down here, and they've got to make a decision to start up that mountain. In fact, the decision, I'm going to call that acquisition. Well, that's from our perspective. That means they see our product, they found it, they investigated. Well, they made some moves like searching for a class and reviewing details and playing an intro. But at some point in time, they're going to make it a little bit farther up that mountain. If they get that far, if they've done a little bit of investigation, then they might start to, well, if they play an intro and sign up and actually take a course, I'm going to call that activation. That's when these people actually try it and actually use it. And for your product, you're going to have to decide, what does activation mean? What does actually using it mean? Now, what we hope is a lot of people activate, get up that far. But what we hope, or what LinkedIn Learning hopes, for instance, is that people make it up further. In fact, the sweet spot, or where we want people to get to, is retention. We want them to keep using our product. And LinkedIn Learning makes money if people make it up to this happy retention place and hang around a while. They keep searching for classes, they keep taking more courses, and more importantly, they keep paying their monthly subscription, and that's when we start to see revenue. Revenue comes from lots of people keep continuing to use this product. And look, at the very top, we hope that they keep using the product. We hope that they like it. And more than anything, we hope that they scale to the top of this thing and they crow about it. They tell others. They make it look fun up here at the top because, well, it's these users at the bottom that get excited about seeing those people at the top. We hope that they say good things. And I'm going to call the very top of the mountain referral. Now, I'm sure some of you have seen this metrics funnel before. This comes from a guy named Dave McClure. Some of you may have seen videos or things describing this thing, and he refers to it as the pirate metrics funnel, or metrics for pirates. Now, it's called that because it spells what pirates say, A-A-R-R-R. Apparently, I've never met a pirate. I think that might be, most pirates might not appreciate that. I don't know if you know a pirate, but that's stereotyping pirates. I'm sure they'd be unhappy about that. And I'm sure pirates don't hang around in mountains anyway. So completely broken. But it's important that you understand. I'm drawing this funnel because it's important that you understand your customer's journey with your product. If you're responsible for a product, you can measure whether people search for a class. But people might search for a class as part of acquisition. They might be looking around to find classes, and, well, searching for a class to see, to investigate, to decide if they want it is different than when I'm searching for a class, well, searching for that first class I want to take. And what we hope is when people are searching for a class after they've taken a class, that means they're, well, looking for their next class to take. You can measure searching for a class, but you're going to have to be super mindful of where people are in their journey. Searching for a class for someone who's never registered is different than searching for a class if you've registered but haven't actually finished taking any class. And that's super different from people searching for classes that have been using your product for a while. Those are the signals that we've actually retained a customer and may actually have a referral on our hands, or have someone who's actively promoting our customer. So look, you need to be mindful of your product's experience. You also need to be mindful of the things that we learn from these kinds of funnels. There's lots of other funnels. There's the Pirate Metrics funnel. You should look up Google's Heart funnel. And look, if you were going to read one book, things like Lean Analytics will explore a bunch of different funnels. Gosh. On the whiteboard behind me, I've got a couple different funnels drawn out here. I found this engagement pyramid. And look, I'll be honest with you, I got completely messed up by looking at funnels because I was having a hard time correlating the funnels from with people's behavior. And all right, I'm not sure where I cut off or got lost. What I wanted you to see is that a metrics funnel, as we use these things today, those look at where our customers are in their journey, where our customers are in their adoption journey. And that's a different thing than where they are in their usage journey. And to reiterate, things like searching for a class in the case of LinkedIn Learning is something I do during acquisition, activation, and in retention. It's important for you to understand you're going to have to correlate what users do in your product with where they are in your journey. Without that, you don't have the insight you need. Now, if you release a new feature, what I was talking about before I started to hang up was this idea of, well, in LinkedIn Learning, marking a class as a favorite class. That's something that I can do routinely. And let's say if you were the product manager there and you launched that feature and you expected people to do that routinely as part of the way that they found a new class. So every time they would be looking for a class, they might mark things as favorites. But you're finding that they just don't. This is the annoying thing about data. Data tells you what happens, but not why. You're going to have to complement data with face-to-face experience. There's an old friend of mine, my friend Archie, that manages product discovery and UX for a company, will say that data is exhaust, not fuel. Data will give you data tells you what happened, but not why. But if you need insight to actually change things, well, you're going to need to actually talk to people to get that insight. All right, I want to wind down here a little bit. Look, I started by telling you for the first decade plus of my life managing products, almost 2 decades, I didn't need any metrics, and I didn't. Look, during the late 90s, we were building on-premises software. It was super hard to get metrics back. But in hindsight, I spent a lot of time face-to-face talking with customers. I spent a lot of time learning from them. I talked with them at trade shows and during the sales process. I talked with them as they were going live with our product. I talked with them when they had problems and I helped them solve the problems. I talk with them when they asked for features to understand those features, and I talk with them after they use those features to make sure that those features were actually solving their problems. I was able to get by with just building up a lot of empathy. I'm going to tell you, if you work for a company that doesn't have good product metrics, that is the least you can do. I want to show, look, one thing, one ask I have of you is to actually start measuring. So look, I'm going to tell you, this is the least you can possibly do. For each feature you release, I want you to reflect on these 2 things. I'm going to draw a big 2x2 here. The first thing to pay attention to is the effort. How long did it actually take to release that feature? And if there's a continuum here that's about size, we might have things that took days or a week. In the middle, we might have things that took weeks, and towards the end, we might have things that took quarters. If after you release something, if every time you release that whole feature, just put it somewhere on that axis. Was it quick? Was it a bit more time consuming? Did it take a long time? And for extra credit, just put a mark on those things. If they took a lot longer than was expected. For instance, if I expected this thing would take, a few weeks, but it took a quarter or more, mark those things that took longer than you expected. You're going to learn something right away, that big things are usually the things that are challenged. Big things are usually the things that are a bit of a mess. We've learned that for a long time, but actually having a little data on it in your company is helpful. But the top to bottom axis, I'm going to call that outcome. And, well, things will rise from the bottom here. At the bottom is the don't know bucket. If you release something, it's going to start with don't know. All the way at the top is the awesome bucket. Awesome means you predicted how awesome that feature was, who would use it and how often, and, things ideally will rise to awesome. Well, just above don't know, I'm going to put the awful bucket. That's where we release it. No one used it, or they tried to use it and they complained and it was terrible. And some things may end up here in awful, but in the middle is this big no man's land I'm going to call the thud zone. And some things may rise up there. One of the things we don't do in a lot of traditional or agile style processes, for instance, is just to reflect on how things came out. Now, metrics are going to let you know a lot sooner how things came out, but at minimum, you can do what I used to do, and that's just talk to customers and see where things land. If you start doing this, one of the things you're going to realize is there's an awful lot you don't know about. If you don't have metrics, you won't know unless people complain, and then it's going to end in awful or somewhere in there. If it's awesome, you might learn about it. But one of the other things you're going to find out is most things don't bubble all the way to the top to awesome. If you're in a company that doesn't have metrics, doing this might start to build a case for metrics. And this is where product management actually starts. When you know something about what happened here, you've got some choices to make. You can kill bad ideas. You can iterate or improve those bad ideas, or you can just, leave it. But watch out for that. There's an old saying that if you improve a product long enough, you'll eventually ruin it. And leaving a bunch of unused or crap features in a product for a long time, that's the way you eventually kill it. All right, let me wrap up here. Look, I've got a few key points, and this is all you need to know to sound smart about metrics in your company if you didn't already know these things. That if you just understand what people use your product for, well, start with that and measure the frequency of that. It's going to give you a nice ratio metric. It's something that you can look at and something you can refer to, something you can use as an early indicator that your company is going to do well or not do well. Think through your user's journey with your product. Sometimes measuring what people do, I work with people that create software that's used for quarterly tax filings. Well, measuring if people do a quarterly tax filing takes 3 months, but they can start to measure early engagement in that process a lot earlier than that. Think through the journey, look for things that are leading indicators. At the minimum, do that least you can do 2x2 thing I just showed. Are we dead again? Hello?
We are good, Jeff. We can hear you well.
Oh, you can hear me. I just got a call from somebody in New Zealand. Somebody might have butt dialed me. I thought we were dead again. Good. Let me wrap this up. Look, continuously reflect on everything you build. Just measure it and respond. Kill things, iterate, or leave it. And then finally, remember that data is exhaust, not fuel. Data will tell you what happened, but not why. It's up to you to figure out what to do after that. All right. That's where I want to leave things. I want to see if we have any time to answer any questions. I want to kill video sharing because I'm hoping that actually stops from slowing things down so much. Oh my God. We weren't sharing that whole time, or the sharing died.
No, it was fine. Yeah. Now we can see you.
could you see this? Could you see the screen as I was putting things on?
Yes, we could see your slides. We could see your hand projection as well.
Okay.
But, yeah, everything was. Yeah, you now your job is done, Jeff. You can relax.
All right.
Maybe not yet. Just I was planning for a few questions, but given the time, probably 2 questions. So make it really valuable. Make it that's relevant.
Yeah, no pressure.
No pressure. So who is brave enough to ask the first question? Raise your hand. I'll bring the mic to you. Please.
I guess my question is with the examples that you've given for metrics, they're more for companies with a physical product. But what would you do for something like a bank where money accounts as your primary product, where it's less tangible as to see like why or how your users are using it? Like, because what do you do with money?
Yeah. So let's first, full stop. You need to look at your customer's experience with their bank. If I think of a bank account as my primary product, I choose a bank. I set up a bank account. I put money in a bank account. In fact, I may put my paychecks in a bank account routinely. I may check my balances routinely, and my bank account grows or it doesn't grow. Similar with credit cards, I sign up for a credit card, and what you're measuring is what people do. How often do they check in with your bank? How often do they check their balances? How often one of the tricks that my bank is doing is they allow me to check my credit report on the banking mobile app frequently. And doing that lets me engage with the bank routinely. So yeah, your bank needs money, and they're going to pay it. You as a product person don't have to convince your bank to measure if they're making money. They're already doing that for you. Measure people's engagement so you know if you're going to keep making money or not. Does that get at the question you were asking?
Yep. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect.
The last question. Lucky last. Come on. Someone got a question for Jeff.
And it doesn't need to be about metrics.
Yeah, anything really. Go on, Aaron. Aaron the man.
This is Aaron the man. So every time I come and I see one of these talks about metrics, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it, and then I get back to my job and I don't do it because I'm just so busy with everything else, delivery and training and support and all that sort of stuff. And I know I should make time, but I don't. Do you have any tips for making me do it?
Don't give up. Just do this. Every time you ship a new feature, put a sticky note on a wall and put it there and ask, how did it go? That's what I was trying to leave. Ditto for me. I spend a lot of time not using metrics, and I work with a lot of companies that don't have metrics, and they'll say exactly what you said. It's non-trivial to start to find metrics frameworks and find a dashboard tool and start to instrument your product for metrics. But start making those outcomes visible, start discussing them, and I promise that you'll start to want to know more, and that will start to create demand for it. But if you can't put sticky notes on a wall, don't. I got nothing for you. That's the least I can think of to do. And I'm pretty lazy. It's hard for me to even do that, frankly. So I can empathize if you don't.
Cool. Thank you. So let's give a big round of applause to Jeff.
Sorry for the bumpiness. Thanks for hanging in there.
I'm sure every one of you learned at least something, at least one thing to take away. Is that right? Awesome. And Jeff, sincerely from our top of our heart, bottom of our heart, although your punch does actually hurt, thank you very much for joining. And really appreciate you're a busy man, but you did actually give some time to the community. So thank you very much. For the rest of you, so I'm going to switch over to other presentation, Jeff. So bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for getting up early to be here.